Hello, welcome to my session about encouraging children into software testing. This session takes place at HUSTEF Online 2020 conference. I very much look forward to seeing all of you there to learn about dragons and how dragons can help children learn about software testing. My name is Kari Kakkonen and I come from Dragons Out Oy. I'm also a consultant at Knowit and secretary of ICTQB with 20 years of software testing background. So, see you in my session. Bye.
Hello, welcome to my session about children encouraged into software testing. This speech is taking place at the online HUSTEF 2020 conference. So let's go. My background is from many different areas. Software testing has been my profession for more than 20 years, and I work at Knowit as a director of training services and a trainer myself, and also a coach for testing, agile, DevOps, and AI. I'm the author and CEO of a company called Dragons Out Oy, a Finnish company which was set up for the book project we are just discussing today. And I'm also the secretary of ISTQB. So I have many different areas of expertise, as you can notice from the slide. We know it, my employer, is a big ICT services company in Nordic countries. I am based in Helsinki, out of those offices that you see in the map. My background on ISTQB, that's the largest testing organization in the world, offering, for example, certificates in different areas of software testing. So that's about the background. Now, next I will give you a task that you can do while you are listening to me. So next 40 minutes or so, you can take a piece of paper, pen, colored pens if you like, markers, whatever you have available, and draw a dragon. So the dragon here represents a defect, like in the book. So think about the defect. Think about some interesting defect that you maybe encountered yourself, maybe something you heard somebody describe, and try to give characteristics to this defect. And then apply the same characteristics into your drawing, into the dragon. So if you are thinking about a very large, very bad defect that really has made the users of a software suffer, maybe you want to draw a really bad and angry dragon. So you see the analogy there. Also mention, write in a piece of paper also the name of the defect, what kind of defect it is, and maybe you even want to name your dragon. Let's see what you come up with. And you can send the photo of your dragon to that email address right there. So it's kari.kakkonen@dragonsout.com. And I will show some of the dragon drawings at the end of the session in the Q&A part. Also, I will be donating a book to the best person, best picture, best drawing. I will make a draw later after the presentation and announce it on my website. Also, if you draw dragons, I might, and I send them to you, I might put them on my website, so be prepared about that as good examples of my audience. So how does the agenda actually go? The talk today is in 3 parts, actually 4. But part 1, we talk about children learning, different ways of learning, a bit of theoretical background on learning. Then we talk about the book as a project. And then we go into the fantasy themes, so we discuss how fantasy can be a nice analogy for software testing. I'll go through some examples that I use in the book. And then we go back to designing your own dragon. So hopefully I'll be able to show a few nice drawings from you, dear audience. So again, those of you who missed the email address, it's kari.kakkonen at dragonsout.com. Realize it's not visible fully, so dragonsout.com. It is also going to be on the last slide of the slideshow, so you can take it from there, and I will be accepting drawings today, anytime today, to be drawn. So let's go and talk about how children learn. So it's a topic of many aspects, of course, and I've been discussing about children learning with my pilot readers and lots of different experts that I've encountered, teachers, testers, and also I've got input from children themselves, and I also have a child, a 6-year-old son. So I like a topic of children learning from many reasons. So stories are, of course, one way of learning. So people learn through a story, listening to something. It's very interesting to listen to a story, a good story, of course, that is. And by listening to a story, you learn without actually noticing that you learn. Another aspect is identifying with others. So which is why the book also has children appearing throughout the book, the story. So, once you are reading a book or listening to a story and there's a character that seems familiar to you, you can identify with that character. That helps you learn and you are drawn into the story a bit more. Then there's the learning through imitation. So you look at somebody or hear about somebody doing something and you can imitate that behavior. It's actually very powerful learning. So learning by example, you could say. Then there are rhymes and songs. So you can even put music into learning. Again, it could be easier for people to remember something. So children especially like to listen to songs and rhymes. So of course, lots of even nursery rhymes that are very good for learning some of the simplest and most important topics in the world. Games are an important way of learning. Gamification is a big thing in general in today's society, as you all encountered, I'm sure. In the book, I'm also using the game idea, so some of the exercises are in the form of a game. So it gives a different learning experience to support the other learning experiences. Then, of course, important way of learning is exploring. So you try something, you fail, you learn from that. This is the way modern society works. This is the way children learn as well. Actually, many people who I've talked with say that this is the main way children learn. So by exploring, trying things. You need to try, and you can't be good at it when you start. So you must fail first, and then you will learn bit by bit to be better. Simplicity and clarity are ways of learning. So if you can put something into very simple terms, explain it very clearly, then it's also easier to learn. So simplicity and clarity are ways of learning or aspects of learning. Repetition, very important. My teachers back in my own school years used to say this a lot, that repetition is the basic behavior of learning. You need to repeat and repeat, and you will remember. And that brings us to remembering. So just memorizing something is sometimes used as a way of learning. It's not the main way, but it also helps to remember things when you can apply them into your tasks. So children also remember surprisingly many things. The memory with children is really, really good. And then there are boundaries, especially important for children again. So for any parent, you all need that you need to set boundaries to your children. You can do anything, but you can't go outside of this room, for example. So you set safe boundaries of what you can do and what you can't do, and within the boundaries that you give, any trial, any exploring is possible. So it's a great supporting factor of learning. So a little bit harder to implement in a book, but anyway, it's important to understand different types of learning, and these are the types of learning I use in the book context. A bit of theory background. The links will be better visible in the material, in the PDF that's available after the presentation. But basically, what is very true is that people learn better if they can use multiple ways of learning at the same time. So children and teenagers, for example, learn by observing, listening, exploring, experimenting, and asking questions all at the same time. And the more you have these different types of learning strategies, the better you will be, the better you will learn. So learning strategy should be combined, and I have tried to keep this advice with me in writing a book all the time. So it's a very important learning, I think. Then a few words about storytelling. So very obviously, a book has a story. It's a storytelling format of learning, mostly. And you might think it's only for people who either read it or listen to the story. But I have good news for you. There are different types of learners in the world, and they all benefit from storytelling. So Harvard Business Review had this article there. It is great. Well, they describe that visual learners they can actually create mental pictures. They imagine things based on the story that they are reading or hearing. So it's also good for a visual learner. The story is obviously good for auditory learner because they can listen to the voice of the reader. It could be their own voice if they're reading themselves. And then finally, there's an example of kinesthetic learner there. You might think that kinesthetic learners who learn by moving their body and doing things, generally, they couldn't learn from storytelling, but that's not true. So based on the research, kinesthetic learners can hook into the emotional connections, feelings from the story. So that would be their contact surface to storytelling. And obviously storytelling helps with remembering because it's easier to remember a story than a list of facts. So to summarize, storytelling works for all learning styles, and that's maybe the most powerful learning technique there is because of this fact of fitting to multitude of styles. Then a little bit about the focus group of how do children learn different ages. Here's a bit of theory background here about ages of 11 and 12. At this age, children start thinking more abstractly. So until that time, they have been very concrete in their ways, do that, do this, and they will learn. But abstraction usually comes at around this age, so grade 5, grade 6. Of course, it all depends on the individual. Some children mature earlier, some later, but on average. And why you need this abstract thinking is because software testing is more abstract than coding, which is quite straightforward logic of getting things done in different order and repetition and so on. So with the testing, you essentially need to think, what do we know already about the software? What can we do next? What don't we know? Can we experiment and try and find out if we have this information, see how the software actually works? So these thinking skills, abstraction skills are something that actually you need to understand testing. So I think you can't really learn based on this piece of theory. You can't really learn software testing at kindergarten age. Not really. It comes later. So the right time is 10 to 12. So when I was thinking about the target group of my book, I started with a broader age range, but after looking into this strategy theory and discussing with many people, I turned up with the 10 to 12 year old target group, because that seems to be the most fruitful age for learning testing. Okay, let's talk about the book project as a project. So book as a project. First of all, I'd like to mention I had the privilege to attend James Whittaker's storytelling and creativity session some years ago, and his ideas about storytelling really turned a spark on me. He has written a storytelling manifesto, which you see here. Let me just read it out loud to you. So every person has a story. Every cause needs a storyteller. Learn to be a storyteller, because unless you are a candidate for a reality show, no one else is going to tell your story for you. So tell us a story. Tell us a good story. And let that good story be one part of a symphony of stories that makes this world a better place. Now, this is really well said, and it really rings a bell also to what I want to do with the world, because I want to make software testing better, and through that make IT better and software better, and through that I believe we can all make the world better. So with better software we have a better world. And I want to tell a story about software testing to everybody. Bring the joy of software testing to everybody in the world, and now it's time to bring it also to children and not only to adults who deal with software daily. So this is my story about software testing for children. So why do we need software testing for children? Now, the fact is that societies around the world, countries around the world have been discussing more and more that we need to bring the education about information technology into schools, to be available for children at early age, because that's when people learn best, when they are young. So, of course, you need to find the right age to start learning about different things. But coding can very obviously be learned also in kindergarten and in grade 1, very early on. And we do need also to learn testing, of course, because coding that can't happen without testing it. Still, very often testing is not really taught that much. It's something that is learned by mistake maybe, or learned later in the world or in universities. And that's actually a bit late. So you can create lots of really bad quality code before you have a chance to learn about testing. So I think we really need to bring testing already to schools, because kids are learning coding already in schools. So there's a big gap of how software development is learned at the moment in schools. All these coding schools and coding clubs and whatever ways of organization have been used in schools are of course great. They are super. They are really, really, really important. I totally vote for them, but I would like to add into them some software testing concepts. Now, the IT industry, the society in general also needs professionals who know how to code and test, and we need more of them. So some way to get them is also by educating children early, and so we get enough coders and testers in later years. It's very obvious that society is turning more and more technical, software in more and more places, and that also means we need a bigger share of society needs to be capable of creating software, and so that means development and testing skills. So my own solution to bring testing to children is by a book of fantasy, and this is what I offer to the world. Let's take a look at the book project timeline. So step by step, how has it all happened so far? So back in 2014, I encountered a new book by Finnish author Linda Liukas, who had published a book called Hello Ruby, a coding book for children at the kindergarten age. That's a great time to start learning about logic, which is in the core of coding. But hearing this made me immediately think that we need to have also testing explained to children. Now that thought kept going on my head, and when I had some book authoring experience in the next years, I was part of an Agile Testing Foundation's author team, and we wrote this great book. It also dawned on me that I actually want to write my own book. It had been a spark like that for a longer time, but this book writing experience made it possible to think that it's actually quite easy. It's quite straightforward. Of course, lots of work, but quite straightforward. And then there was an opportunity. The opportunity was the 1-year sabbatical leave from work. So together as a family, me and my wife and our son, we decided to have a year of work and kindergarten for my son. And we would go to Lapland, enjoy nature, breathe a little bit, enjoy being as a family. One goal that I set there was that I would write a book, or at least start writing a book. As the time went by, it was half year through the sabbatical, and I had only entered into thinking about it. So I took my computer out and wrote chapter 1, and I had started. So starting things seems to be the most difficult part. After that, things started flowing, and I wrote more chapters. I sent them to pilot readers. I found children and adults alike, asked their opinion about the book, and I got very great feedback. At this time, I was thinking about all kinds of ages, children from age of 8 all the way up to 15 years old, and I got feedback about what works and what doesn't work. I also discussed the concept with many people, and the concept of a book, concept of the illustrations, and I realized that I actually want to do more than just a book. I want to create maybe a universe around the characters in the book. It could be anything. So I started really developing a concept of this fantasy world and the analogy testing. I wrote more of the text, more of the chapters, and again more of the pilot readers and great feedback. You could summarize it by saying that people like the fantasy story a lot. The testing theory was a little bit harder to understand even through the analogy. So I got great feedback in making it simpler and more clearer. So that was very good feedback, very essential. When I started thinking about how am I going to implement all this, writing text is all good, but there are so many steps in getting a book published, and so I decided I'll set up a company of my own. So it's very straightforward to create a company in Finland. So I set up Dragons Out Oy for the book project need and possibly any future needs about the broader concept. I finalized the text. I got all the content I wanted to have in the book. Again, more pilot reading rounds. I iterated it a lot. I ended up with the target group of 10 to 12-year-olds. And through some great feedback from adult pilot readers at this time, I realized that it's actually a fun experience to read a book, even if you're an adult. So I ended up with a slogan that the book is suitable to ages of 10 to 99, like many toys advertising that way. I also found the illustrator after looking around, signed a deal with her, and she did some concept development for the characters with me, so with people and the dragons in the story. After the iterations, we got really good style and that fulfilled the ideas that I had about this universe of dragons and knights and children in it. And then we agreed that she would first do the priority 1 pictures, so a minimum of pictures that the book would need to be viable. Then I started a crowdfunding campaign to be able to afford more illustration, have an even more colorful book. This included lots of advertising and marketing, of course. Then I started looking into the publishers. So at the same time for Finnish publishers and for English publishers, because at this time I already knew, and I had promised in the crowdfunding campaign as well, that I would translate the Finnish text to English over the winter and basically publish at the same time a Finnish and English version of the book. So I had written the first the Finnish version of the book all the way through. That was my choice. The crowdfunding money went to fund more of illustrations, so priorities 2 and 3. Then I moved into the translation part. So December, January, that time I translated everything to English. Many people ask if I wrote originally in Finnish or English, but and I could have done it either way, but I wanted to imagine things in Finnish first and then translate to English. The experience of translating was actually really good. It was one more iteration also to the Finnish version of the book, so I also got to improve some concepts and ideas and phrases in the Finnish version, which I realized by doing the translation. So actually it might feel like lots of effort to do 2 versions, 2 languages side by side for a book, but actually I think it was definitely worth it. Also, the quality of the Finnish version of the book became even better. Then we created a sample design with my illustrator, so put the pictures into the text to give a look and feel and experiment with the flow of the text and pictures, and also to explain to publishers the idea of the book in a bit more concrete way. At the end, I was able to choose first the English publisher out of 4 different offers, and after that the Finnish publisher out of 3 offers. So it was great to have the publishers, of course. At the same time, after talking to all these publishers, I realized that not only the process of choosing a publisher is a long one, but also the process of publishing. So it would include tech edit and layout, design, and things like that. Reviewing all of that would take more time. Now in summer 2020, I started thinking about Christmas pre-orders for the book, and also activating the school donation campaign again, which was part of the crowdfunding campaign. So this time the campaign was a little bit different type. So at the moment I am promising to donate myself 1 book for every 3 sold books. So that seems to be a feasible way, most feasible way of donating. Also, lots of companies and organizations have donated books directly to schools, but I think it's better that it is also possible to donate in a way through me. I'll be doing collateral development, also seminars, posters, and stuff like that. And now for finished version, we are going to Christmas market. So the publishing date is December 1st. The English version published date is to be decided later by the English publisher. So my English publisher is Austin Macaulay, and my Finnish publisher is Avain. So I'm eager to learn what the publishing date of the English version will be in the end. Soon enough, anyway. All that seems like lots of work and step by step getting there, but I'd like to highlight also that it's not only straightforward successes, it's ups and downs, especially as it comes to feelings and emotional timeline of a book project could look a little bit like this. So I just explain the peaks a little bit. So every time you get good feedback, of course it's great. So when I was writing the finished version, I got great feedback, and it felt good, of course. At some point, I realized that it's going to be expensive to me. I need to invest before the book starts to sell at some point. Finding an illustrator, having a team, of course, feels good. Going into crowdfunding campaign, you start to think about big things. It could be something very great and so on. Sending things out to the world, in a way finalizing things, so sending proposals to publishers also feels like an accomplishment. At some point I realized that crowdfunding actually covers only illustration, not printing, and this felt like a downer, of course. Later, soon after, I also at the same time realized that I'm going to be in a hurry that year. How do I find time to translate to English, which I had committed to doing? So that was a bit stressful moment. The solution was to take time off from work, which was great. A bit later, again, I realized that the publishers are really taking their time, considering if they take my book or not. But then things felt better because my English translation proceeded, and there was good feedback on that version as well. And obviously, getting a publishing deal is a great thing. So English one first, and then we Finnish one next. You also notice that going down with the feelings, there was more realization that this really costs me as well. I need to put my own money in as an investment to help get the best possible type of deal, and finally getting there was a great accomplishment. Now this last box here is that, again, I felt like in a very much hurry. I need to find more time to market the book, and again, going back to positive side on the emotional timeline, is decision was to take more time off work. All right, so I would definitely recommend everybody to create a book if you are into authoring and writing at all. Just remember that there are ups and downs. It's quite normal. But you need to go through all kinds of things, and in the end, it'll be all good. I'll also release a PowerPoint that will be available for any teacher in the world to explain testing to their children, to their school students. So that's a supporting thing for the book. And the book illustrator is Adrian Zell, and I am the author, Kari Kakkonen. So this is the book as a project. Okay, now let's talk about how fantasy can explain testing. So power of the story first. So once you are telling a story, story takes a form of knights or children or villagers encountering some dragons who are somehow harassing the villages, maybe eating lambs, maybe destroying villages or trying to destroy villages. and then children, knights, villagers band together and find the dragons and vanquish them. And of course, you need to explain that into terms of software testing if you want to also learn software testing. So throughout the book, there's first the story and then the explanation. So in this sample here, you can see that people are looking for defects. So they would be testers, and fixing defects, they would be coders, and the dragons are the defects that you need to find and remove. So the power of the story is quite strong. Now let's take a look at individual characters and what kind of analogies do they convey. And this is actually also the structure of the book. So each chapter talks about the different type of dragon. So first we have an annoying dragon. What is this? A red one, a quite small one, quite difficult to find dragon, easy to get rid of, a dragon that eats lambs. So what kind of dragon is it? It is a memory leak defect. So in a similar fashion as with dragon, it's hard to find, but once you find it, it's fairly simple to remove. You could basically add one character in the code and the memory leak in the code would be fixed. It wouldn't use memory anymore or too much like it does when there's a problem. So this would be one type of defect. Then there are robin dragons, which is a group of different types of dragons. Green ones, gray ones, they are large and small. Some are hard to find, some are easy to find. Also from point of view of getting rid of them, some are easy to get rid of, some are hard to get rid of. Some fly, some don't, some breathe fire, some don't, and so on. So these dragons all together, they steal food and treasure. Now they represent functional defects. So most of the defects in the IT world, in software, are related to functionality. So something works in the wrong way or doesn't work at all. It could be a bad defect, could be an easy, simple defect. It could be visible or not visible. So in the same way as defects have lots of different characteristics, in the story I've given dragons different characteristics, which are very similar to the defect that they represent. So through that, it's then easier to understand different types of dragons and different types of defects. Let's take a look at another type of dragon. So here we have a mean dragon. Now what the mean dragon does is it steals food and treasure without being detected. Quite difficult to find, fairly okay to get rid of once you finally find it. Now the mean dragon is a security defect. So in a similar fashion as the analogy goes, it's a little bit black hat, right? For a hacker trying to break into a system. A little bit hard to find, but once you find the security defect or a problem through some non-vulnerability, for example, you can remove a security defect. So very important type of defect for sure. Then we have a fast dragon. This one is a purple dragon, hard to find, hard to get rid of. It's good in stealing gold in secrecy in the story. Now this kind of dragon represents a performance defect. So your software needs to be fast enough to work, for users to like it, and so on. If you have experienced slow software, it's a performance defect. So in a similar fashion, there's this dragon that must be found so that the village can operate fast enough in their normal day-to-day life and not be slowed by a dragon. Let's take a look at another type of dragon. There's also a Showy Troublesome dragon. Now this is a very big dragon. very showy, looks fantastic if you like dragons. It's big, it's talking in gold, it's protecting its territory, so it can be very annoying because of that fact. Now this is a usability defect. So software might be usable, but it doesn't fully work. There are some challenges. You can go around them, but it would be better to have better usability. So definitely good type of defect to get rid of. And there are underground dragons. Underground dragons are in tunnels underground. As the name goes, they try to find easy food and they eat, of course, a lot. Now, these represent hardware defects. So something is wrong with the device or the system under your software. The server, the router, the IoT device, whatever you have, you need to fix that. The tester may not know why the software is not working, but it could be a problem in the device. Then there are dragons of the type of shadow. So is it actually a dragon? It looks like a dragon, it confuses people, and it's quite easy to get rid of after all. Now this is a testability defect. So testability defects look like a defect for the tester, but they turn out to be problems in test data or environment or something related to testing. So of course you need to fix your testing, but not to the software. And there are nice dragons. I want to mention that some of the pilot reader input and feedback was that I hope there's a nice dragon as well, because dragons are nice. They can't all be bad. So I'm happy to announce that I also have nice dragons that are helping people. And what these dragons do is that they represent defect seeding or mutation testing defects. So they are defects that are put into the system on purpose. So this is a powerful technique of improving your code coverage and test coverage. Basically understanding that once you have removed the seeded defects, you have probably found and removed all the defects, also the real defects. So this is very useful and helpful for people in software development, and similarly, nice dragon is useful for story, people in story. Stubborn dragon then is something that is harassing people repeatedly, very hard to get rid of. What could this be? Now it's very obviously version management defect, but it could be of any type, any other type of a defect, functional defect for example, but it keeps coming back. There's a problem somewhere in it handling different versions of software. So you need to fix the version management to get rid of this type of defect. Then there's a confused dragon. Small dragon, easy to spot, easy to get rid of, harassing large dragons. And this represents documentation defect. So document user guide says something, software does another thing. It's confusing. You need to align them. You need to fix either the documentation or the software. Okay, so different types of defects. But then we have other characters which are needed in the story, of course, that are maybe also a bit easier to identify with. So we have knights. The knights represent developers and testers. So agile teams that together create the software. So from defect point of view, they would find the defects and remove them. Find and fix. Different types of knights. Then we have children and villagers. So like in real world of IT, users will also find problems, sometimes in piloting phase, so it doesn't need to be a software in production. And the villagers, and this includes the children, the villagers will help the knights to find and remove the dragons. Then we have a special type of villagers, which is hunters. Hunters represent technical support. So what technical support personnel usually does is that they maintain a software and they even fix it when it gets broke. If it's a harder problem, they turn to developers for help. From point of view of DevOps world, you would include maintenance people, technical support people into the responsibility of a team, a development team. So the hunter could be actually one of the knights in a DevOps setting. Then we have lords and ladies who represent the owners, product owners, management, leadership, people who order the software and who could be the bosses of the developers and testers. Then we have also sages, and what sages do is that they help others. So they have special knowledge, for example, about learning and dragons. So in the world of IT, it would be usability or security or performance knowledge or something else. So they would help with development teams with very special skills. So we sages in the story help knights and the children to find the dragons. So that's what happens with the sages. Okay, and now we go back to the task that I gave you in the start. So you had the chance to imagine your own defect and make the defect into a dragon and dragon drawing. So now you could, if you haven't done it already, you could send that to me. So again, the email is kari.kakkonen@dragonsout.com. I will put the next slide on, which has my email better visible, so my video is not overlapping it, so kari.kakkonen@dragonsout.com. Once we go into the Q&A part of the session, I'll pick a few photos from the emails and show them to you live in a screen share, and later today or maybe tomorrow I will also make a draw and select the best dragon to be, the drawer of the best dragon to be the recipient of one copy of my English book. So you'll get it as soon as it's available, of course. Anybody can participate in the book donation campaign and also get the book for themselves or their children, of course. Pre-ordering is possible in that link through Finnish and English version. You can just also follow the book project, learn how things are going through that website. Just subscribe there. It would be great if everybody shared the news about the book and the importance of bringing testing to children, and share the word, spread the word. That would be great. I enjoyed talking to you. Let's next go into the Q&A session, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So thank you very much. It has been a pleasure, and talk to you in the Q&A in a sec.